Exhausted by the headlines, wondering where Canada's headed? You can be part of a different story. Join the CareImpact A-Team. Canada is 158 this year, so we're asking for 158 good neighbors to join us in strengthening communities across Canada. Whether it's a loonie or a lot, every dollar fuels hope, powering care-sharing tech that connects churches, agencies, and neighbors to respond better together, because no one should fall through the cracks. Will you join us? Every loonie counts. Go to careimpact.ca/donate by April 15th and get entered to win a Canadian care package. Oh, Canada, let's do this. Having relational integrity, and that takes work. That is the work, is building relationships. It's not the outcome necessarily. The relationship is the work. It's like going on a train trip. A train trip isn't about the destination. The train trip is the trip. It is doing it together. It's seeing the sights. It's experiencing life together. That is the invitation.
This is Journey with Care, a podcast by CareImpact, where curious Canadians find inspiration to love others well through real-life stories and honest conversations. Hey, Wendi, we are back with another Second Thoughts episode. How are you doing this week?
Doing well. It's chilly out here in the camper, but I do see more sunshine these days, so that is good.
So we're taking a step back to discuss our conversation, reflect on it, and share our thoughts about our discussion that we had with Marie Christian this last week. The episode, I think we labeled it The Privilege of Quiet Advocacy That Lets Others Be Heard. What has been sitting with you, Wendi, since that conversation?
Well, that was a really deep, good conversation. I really appreciate. I could really identify with asking myself the question, what is my role alongside others? And she made it sound so simple. Just simply ask, what is it that you need? And simplifying it, taking the guesswork out of compassion is letting the other person voice what it is that they need. I really like that.
And we did have Marie on for season 2. It's been a couple years to the date almost, actually, where we had her on. We sat in her office and she shared a lot of similar things, but really expanded on it on this one, I find. And it almost feels more timely now that we're having this conversation now. Now, we're in this series, The Cost of Indifference. Like, why are we having this conversation in this series?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When we're looking at indifference, you wouldn't necessarily pair that with advocacy, because advocacy can be really good. It is really good. It is needed. But the cost of advocacy, when we don't understand how to do it in a healthy, relational way, can sometimes be taking the voice from people. It's actually not listening to the people. It's trying to fix people and voice things without listening. And so the role of advocacy, as we learned last week with Marie Christian, is we need to be able to sit, connect, and ask, what is it that you need? Where would you like to go with this? And it's nuanced, right, Johan? I loved how Marie said, well, if they really want to paint all the lawns in our neighborhood purple, do we just go out and buy a can of paint? What was your thoughts on that?
I was wondering if she's held on to that analogy because it seemed pretty brilliant at the time. I'm like, where did that come from? Because sometimes we try to be over-helping or overcompensating and say, yeah, like, let's do that. Let's run with it. Instead of asking the question about, well, why do you want to do that? Like, what's behind that? What's your thought process behind that? And I really like the way that she used that analogy.
Yeah, because advocacy isn't just like, oh, if a person who is in need is voicing what they want is purple paint on all the lawns in the neighborhood, doesn't mean we jump when they say jump, but it's actually an invitation, a bid to get closer. It's a bid to ask, so tell me more. Tell me more. What is behind all of those things? And maybe there's something that we can connect. I can't be all things to all people. And for some of us, that can be a hard thing to swallow. I want to do so much. I want to care for others. And so let me bend over backwards. But being honest with ourselves, and I loved where she went with this, finding your authenticity. Who are you? and what has God created you to be, and what role do you have in this? And it requires some discernment and saying, okay, in that purple paint analogy and in that sense of beautification, maybe I have a green thumb in there somewhere. And maybe you and I can connect over a greenhouse and over purple flowers. I don't know, but that's where there is no formula. It's a matter of having that relational integrity to get closer, to lean in closer, not just say, I don't do purple paint. That's a stupid idea. It's an invitation to get closer in a relational kind of way.
And Marie talked about advocacy being sometimes standing in front, beside, or behind. And I don't know, just thinking about this whole purple paint analogy, it makes me think about parenting adults sometimes. You want to stand in front, beside, and behind. Like, I was just thinking the other day, our son was telling us about this one time that he came home from work and he wants to take a trip to BC to see his cousins. And like, he bought the plane ticket and all this stuff afterwards, but he was excited about this idea. He comes in and he's all excited about it. And we kind of shut him down by asking those parenting questions. Well, how are you going to afford it? You've never flown before. Like, where are you going to be staying? And it just shut down that excitement. And afterwards he came and talked to us and he said, I was excited about this thing and I just wanted to share it with you guys. And you just shut it down. So
oh, Dad.
Sometimes advocacy is like, you try to do the parenting thing, but advocacy is sometimes just sharing excitement and then processing it with them and asking those questions again. So what are you going to do here?
Not necessarily imposing your wisdom, your worldview on them, but going deeper, right?
And allowing them to make the mistakes and allowing them to learn and allowing them to grow, because when you just parent, sometimes it squashes their growth even sometimes.
Oh, I'm so with you, Johan. I can so relate. I'm in the trenches right now, raising teenagers and having young adults and letting them make choices, letting them discover things for themselves. And let's face it, I don't know all the answers. But we do come with some lived experience, but limited. I have limited experience from my worldview. And so I need to confront my biases. And when there is danger or when there is things that I'm like, I so want to prevent my older daughters from harm. I have to say, I do believe integrally it comes from a good place of wanting to protect that mama bear. It doesn't go away when they they have their 18th birthday cake. You want to protect them. But part of learning to let go and be a champion of our kids is saying, okay, when is it that I can't protect them? I need to walk alongside, ask those questions, and let them make choices, good or harmful or things like that, and say, you know what, maybe maybe my role is to stand behind and pray. Maybe it is to stand beside and ask questions that don't shut down conversations. Because I know I'm there too, Johan. It's so easy for me to, even in my questioning, I can stand in front and shooting things down and poking holes through their brain development. But let's put it into a context of churches having compassion within their community. Is it any different, do you think, with those that are struggling with homelessness or addictions or have different lifestyles than perhaps is on their own doctrinal statements, even other denominations down the street? How do we do relationships there?
I think even bringing it back to what we were just talking about, I think churches often do the same thing where the leaders at the top, they'll squash those ideas of those excited people in the congregation that want to do this new initiative, or they want to get something going in the church, even if it has to do with poverty. They ask the questions, well, how much is it going to cost? And where are you going to do this? Who are you going to bring on board? You haven't done this thing before, or I've seen it done before and it didn't work. So sometimes the church takes that role where they're squashing ideas and not being advocates of their community doing things. And I'm not saying that's for all churches, and I'm not saying that's for every idea either, but we've seen examples of this time and time again. So how do we as leaders grapple with that tension of lifting up our people when they're excited about something and then maybe coming back to later and asking the questions, or standing behind them, or knowing when to step back and letting them take the lead?
Well, and I think there's no simple answer to that. I think there's no simple 1, 2, 3 step. The key to all of this is that relational piece of going deeper, leaning into each other, learning to find some common denominators, and even in our differences and even in our best intentions, it's a matter of having relational integrity. And that takes work. That is the work, is building relationships. It's not the outcome necessarily. The relationship is the work. It's like going on a train trip. A train trip isn't about the destination. The train trip is the trip. It is doing it together. It's seeing the sights. It's experiencing life together. That is the invitation. And then we also have to look at within the church, we are at times that happy Helen or the philanthropic Phil that wants to intervene on, I see that person in tent city and I'm going to rescue them. I'm going to build them the house. I'm going to feed them till they're fat. I'm going to do these things because not on my watch are they going to go in the direction that they're going. But we might have good intentions. But have we stopped to have 1,000 cups of coffee with them? Have we stopped to ask, Joe, what would you like? And how are you doing? And tell me about your day. Tell me about the good things that you're excited to wake up to. Are we going to do the deep work of relational intervention? If there's anything our country needs, is relational intervention, trust-based relational intervention. We used that as a Care Lingo not too long ago. Listen up if you don't know what TBRI is. But we need trust-building relational intervention. Hey, maybe that's a new one, TBRI. We need to be building that. That is the work of advocacy.
And we actually talked about churches asking their community what they need instead of assuming. So again, that comes with relationships, sitting at the table with that cup of coffee. And when you ask those questions, it often gets messy. And we talk about being okay with getting messy sometimes and getting real about the messiness. You know that good intentions often collide with that real world messiness. And this is going to be a future episode where we're talking about moving from programs to authentic relationships. What are some of those messiest but most beautiful partnerships that you've seen between churches and communities, Wendi?
Well, call me weird, but I love the messy. I've learned to embrace it. I'm learning even in my own discomfort that is the work. And I can't be more excited about why we're doing CarePortal. Now, CarePortal is a care sharing technology that connects communities together to support individuals in the community. But it could be seen as just a Kijiji, a marketplace. Oh, they need a bed. So we're going to deliver a bed. That's what we're trying to not do. Okay. What I'm excited about CarePortal is that we're training those that are already on the front lines, the agencies, the nonprofits, those that are doing some really good things, interventions, working with people in crisis. We're training them to ask the question, what is it that you need? How can we move things along, not just for you, but with you? And there's some discernment, some vetting that goes along, right? Like we're not delivering purple paint to every household, but what are the things that will move you forward? What is it that you would like in order to get your children home? And how can we work this through? Or what is it that you need as you're aging out of foster care that would give you a sense of security, that would help you get that job, that would make you feel confident for that first interview? We're inviting social workers and frontline workers to ask those questions, to walk along beside. This isn't a frontline intervention. This is a beside intervention. And they're able to put those needs onto the portal. And churches that we're training also in advocacy, what does it look like to come along behind and beside in responding to their needs and being that a relational connection point? It's more about the relationship than what that bed means. Yes, that bed is important, or that need is being met in a timely way. But let's connect neighbor to neighbor.
Yeah, and you talk about social workers. Historically, social services and the church have not worked well together. They don't get along. There's a mistrust there.
Yeah.
And yet social workers have their pulse on what the community actually needs. So if we're going to ask the community, hey, what do you need? They're a good place to start.
Yeah. And we need to build trust and relationships with social workers as well. They are humans. They've gone into this career with the intentions and the desire to care for the most vulnerable. And I can tell you from talking with social workers, as I've gotten to know them, they've opened up with me over so many cups of coffee. I think we must be past 1,000 by now with some people. The things that they are exposed to on a daily, and they cannot explain to others. They cannot respond to media. I'm not saying social service systemically is perfect, but there are people coming to the front lines. They know where the needs are. So when they are walking alongside others and they're identifying something beside others and advocating for it on CarePortal, what we're training churches to say is like to look at those needs and say, don't try to discern if that is what you think that Johnny boy needs. Trust and lean into that relationship with the social worker who is inviting you in. And it's a bid for trust. It's a bid for relationships with them and with their clients that they want to trust you with. So we're working alongside churches predominantly to say, how do we do that well? And so this conversation is crucial. And I encourage everybody to go listen to Marie Christian's episode if you haven't already, because these are conversations we need to be having around our pews, around our kitchen tables, in how we journey with others, because we can often get in the way and we can come up with the most interesting scenarios where we think we're doing good. But I can tell you, I still have that vivid image of a vegetarian newcomer family getting 6 frozen turkeys at Christmas. We do that because we don't have relationships and they become a project, and we can do better. And I've seen better.
Well, Wendi, do you have any examples of seeing better?
Yeah, we have thousands of examples, literally. We just reached over 1,000 children served by local churches through the CarePortal. I know, that's a big deal. And actually, there's more. This is what we have documented. It's a very transparent system of how care sharing happens in our country. But there are so many stories and examples of families receiving care and them feeling seen and heard because they said, you know what, we've been sleeping on the floor and we were at risk of losing our kids because we couldn't provide. You know what, I lost a job. I couldn't do it. We were just fell in hard times. And where the church showed up in those timely spaces, they didn't actually know what was needed. And we've taken that guesswork out with CarePortal because the social worker has been able to advocate alongside them. And within 24 hours, they were all in beds. And so there's story after story. There's youth that didn't think they could get that construction job after they'd aged out. And within hours, within days, they were responded to by the church, knocking on their door and saying, here we are. We heard you needed this. And it's just received with such warmth because we're not imposing steel-toed boots on him and now go get a job. Now, like, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. We're listening and saying, what is it that you need to succeed this month? And to see his dreams come true and get to that next step, because the church wasn't giving them a bouncy castle or a hot dog or come to our men's program. They were saying, here, just simply, we're here for you and we hear you. That is just like, you can get addicted to caring just because you're seeing that relationship happen in real time 1,000 times over. We want to see 1,000,000 times over across our nation. We can do better by simply listening. And now we even have technology to help us listen better because, let's face it, we don't even know what the needs are. We don't even have mechanisms to listen. We don't have relationships to listen. So we're taking that guesswork out of compassion simply by bringing some technology to help us do better.
And we have a ton of stories from CarePortal. Like you're just sharing a few examples.
Yeah.
But so we'd be amiss to not talk about this subject that was predominant in our conversation with Marie is safe storytelling and ethics for asking for these stories. In fact, the first episode that we did with her 2 years ago is called Telling Stories Safely, or along those lines of sharing stories safely. Here's a quote Marie said: "We want to make an impact, we want to touch people's hearts, and we want to see change happen, but not at the cost of your own mental health, emotional health." So my question is, how could we tell those hard stories that invite compassion without turning people's pain into content? I mean, this is something I wrestle with as a podcast producer. We're working on a kind of a true crime type podcast coming up where it really is telling a story about someone's pain. And we don't want to just find those hard stories to turn them into content for the sake of doing something edgy or the sake of telling a story that are going to intrigue an audience. We want to tell stories that are going to cause transformation, and we don't want to hurt the storyteller at the same time.
Yeah.
So how do we tell those hard stories without turning people's pain into content? You know that feeling.
Yeah, you've touched on a really important topic there, Johan. Juice sells, blood sells. Like, people want the juicy stories. And we have to be careful when we're even inviting people, when we're even asking questions with people going through hardship. You need to earn trust to be shared those deeper stories and those deeper realities. And it can be exploitative. And as Mama Bear to my children, I know people they mean well, and they often want the juice of like, what's going on in your family, and tell me their stories. And I'm like, that's really my children's stories to share. I just get to journey with them. And it's not something I have privilege to disclose. And yet, people going through hardship do need people they can trust and confide in, that they can actually share their stories. So part of, like, going back to CarePortal, part of the big things that we work on with social services and caseworkers that are in those stories, they're living those out alongside these people. They're seeing what is needed, and they're needing some extra community supports. One of the big things that we really land on is how to share stories safely, not giving out too much information, but humanizing the individual. How do we bring the human side of it? When we're sharing other people's stories, how would they feel if you were saying this in front of them? Would it be honoring? Would it be looking at the good, not just the tragedy, or that they're a pity case, if we're talking about somebody? And then when we're inviting other people to maybe speak in our church, maybe there's somebody that have come into your church that are sharing their testimony. How do we invite storytelling in an ethical way? And you'll have to go back to the link in the show notes on Marie's first episode with us on that. But how do we invite people without extracting too much, where they're left vulnerable, they're left open, gaping wounds because we've invited them to speak it, and yet we don't provide adequate support, relational support, trauma care. Trauma care is crucial to creating that felt safety. How do we do that? We have to check our motives. When we're asking people to share about themselves, is it because we want to know, or is it because we're leaning in, inviting them into a safe place? And we have to go at the pace of relationships, not in our unsatiated desire to know what the scoop is on their life.
And like I mentioned, this other podcast we're working on, that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure right off the hop. Like, I didn't really know this person very well. So we started our conversation by saying, hey, what are some of the talking points that you don't want us to touch on? Mm-hmm. What are some of those off limits areas? And they were honest right away. And I think we're going to get better stories and more authentic stories when we create that felt safety, which was our Care Lingo word last week. When we create that felt safety for them to be able to share their stories in a safe place. Before we end this conversation, Marie mentioned this a few times, so it felt really important. She had these 4 words that she was using to describe as a framework for advocacy and good listening. Can you remember those 4 things? And do you have anything that you want to riff on for those?
Yeah, it's just a really simple way that we can all take to heart. We can all memorize these things. It's 4 words. It's ask, listen, believe, and act. And so I would encourage you right now, write it down, like jog it into your memory right now. Ask So we've talked about it already. We can ask questions, and not just in an inquisitive, kind of nosy kind of way, but asking questions that say, I'm here for you. I'm interested in your day, not just about what I want to get out of this conversation or out of your story. And not assuming what people need. Just ask people, what is it that you would like in this situation to happen? And then to listen and truly listen, unbiased listen. We need to check our biases and listen just for the sake of connecting and hearing what is behind what they're saying. What is it that they're actually saying that I'm not paying attention to, that I need to listen? And then there is believe. We need to believe in what people are saying, believe in them, believe that they have the imago Dei in them, and that what they are experiencing is their reality and is something that we need to understand in order to appropriately respond. So we need to believe what they're saying. A child, an elderly, an intoxicated person, believe where they're at. And then we need to act. We need to do something. And that we could do many things, but let's not start with act. Often we want to start with act. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. No, we need to ask, listen, believe, and then act. That's just a response. How does God want you to respond? What is God inviting you into their story for? And who are you? And then how is God asking you to respond?
Here we go. ALBA. That's your acronym.
Oh, Alba, yes. Alba's up.
ALBA's up.
Okay, guys, this is a new riff on Canadian politics here. Instead of elbows up in antagonism, let's go Alba's up. I think we could actually run with this.
Okay. Now it's time for
Care Lingo.
Our word today is Withness, and we got a few people commenting on the Care Impact podcast group. Again, if you want to comment on any Care Lingo segments that we post there, or just get in on the conversation, join a group of awesome people because, well, Wendi and I are there, so
come join us.
Come join us. It's fun. We want to grow the group. It'll be fun. Lots of good stuff on there. Withness, again. So Ashley commented, when you need someone to back you up in court, but you have somewhat of a speech impediment, kind of like me. You say, can I get a witness? Can I get a witness? I mean, I'm not making fun of people with a lisp because I have a little bit of one. So, in fact, I had a speech impediment when I was very young.
I didn't realize that of you, Johan. So this is your word then? Would you own this?
I could, yeah, I would own this. In fact, when I was young, I couldn't pronounce consonants. It was all vowels.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yeah.
Here you are being a podcast co-host, so.
And then there's Kathy who commented, it's someone who is really with it. They have withness about them. Kathy, you are with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's got some withness.
Now, my definition, I was kind of running with Ashley's before I heard all this, but then I had another one. I'm like, you know what? Those cryptids, we got Loch Ness. You know, when you want to take a selfie with Loch Ness, you got the lake behind you and you see Loch Ness in the background.
I see where that's going,
and you
yeah.
take this selfie, you're with Ness.
Oh, yes.
It's like, yeah, I'm with Ness right now. Anyway, that's what it could mean. But what does it actually mean, Wendi, unless you have a offbeat definition?
I don't think I could beat those ones. Ashley, Kathy, Johan, like you guys got me beat. But for many people, withness might sound like a spelling error or something, a speech impediment, but it actually is kind of a coined language, maybe more recently, that we have also included in some of our language. And when you hear us say withness, it really means being radically present with others and being sort of that advocate, but with. Instead of just witnessing and seeing, observing what's happening out there, there's a radical presence about witnessing what is here, but we are going to be with. So withness is being fully engaged with someone or a community in the moment, offering your attention and your support and understanding without judgment. And it's about being there for them, truly listening and connecting and validating other people's experiences. And Johan, if there's a word that is more appropriate to our timing in society, in North America, we need a lot more withness from the church, from society, to be with each other. It's that, again, that relational building intervention that we need to have more witness. And so I encourage you, try putting it into your day, try practicing it in your day as you see the news, as you're walking down the street, as you're in work, being with your family. Witness.
And I dare you to try to say witness now without saying it with a lisp, because I can't do it right now.
Let's make lisping cool again.
All right. So listeners, if you resonated with this conversation and Marie's conversation, hey, send it to a friend, send it to someone that you think would benefit from this conversation. Sharing word of mouth is the way that we can get more people on board with these conversations and take it deeper. Like, let's have conversations around that dinner table with family and friends. And remember to join the Facebook group, CareImpact podcast group. And as always, or for the first time, remember to keep your ALBAS up and stay curious. Thank you for joining us on Journey with Care. To get more information on weekly episodes, upcoming opportunities, or to connect with our community, visit journeywithcare.ca or find CareImpact on Facebook and Instagram. Or just check the show notes for these links and all the links related to this episode. Share your thoughts, leave us a message, and be part of a network of individuals journeying in faith and purpose. Together, let's discover how we can make a meaningful impact.